There is no royal road to geometry. First off, huge respect to you for clicking on this video. I mean, in a world of baby Gronk Riz edits, it takes an enormous amount of fortitude and valor to prioritize your self-education improvement, and just massive respect for that. That's top 1% attention span and motivation to become your best self right there. And my promise is that when you're done with this video, you'll be dreaming of elegant and beautiful mathematical realities as you fall asleep in geometry class. No longer will it just be hot girls and pizza. No, in this mind, it's going to be the math that I taught you. You heard that. You're still going to fall asleep in geometry class. It's boring, right? But you'll be still thinking about math. So that's good. Quick introduction. I'm Tommy, and CTMU Singularities, where your self-improvement and self-education meets a mindset of absolute truth. I help young guys get so self-actualized that they start figuring out the meaning of the universe. Subscribe right now if you want this on your homepage. That's a big FU to YouTube. You're saying no more Sigma edits, no more music videos. I prioritize my education improvement over everything else. Here you can learn what school won't teach you. You can go in the link below and join my free school community, SKOOL, school.com, and book your free consultation with me. And there are a number of courses that we have up there that are freely available. I've spent the last 3 years obsessing over learning the most advanced logical system in the world called the CTMU, and now I spend all my time teaching other young guys how to conquer the world by becoming the most intelligent, educated, motivated versions of themselves that they can. And math, we all don't really like it, at least for the most part. But in a world of oversimplification in politics, science, and religion, mathematics can seem like a breath of fresh air, or rather, a terrifying headfirst dive into the deep end of actual knowledge, which is why it's very intimidating for most people, including the old pharaoh of Egypt, Ptolemy, who once asked Euclid if there was an easier way to learn math than reading his textbook, 13 volumes, called The Elements. Euclid replied to the young pharaoh, "There is no royal road to geometry. Just because you're a king doesn't mean you don't have to learn like the rest of us. Math is hard, which makes it fair. Nobody gets a free pass." As Euclid told a student who asked him what he'd get for learning a new geometry concept, Euclid ordered his assistant to go give him a coin. There has to be a reward for our endeavors, or we get bored and unmotivated. But our reward that we're seeking is intrinsic, where we're seeking an end and purpose in mathematical inquiry to become more thoughtful, reflective people and have a mathematical brain, think mathematically, and prize math as not necessarily a good in itself, but as a means to gain more profound knowledge. The CTMU, the cognitive theoretic model of the universe, the framework which I've studied, supports the embedment of mathematics within more profound layers of reality. Its author, Chris Langan, says all true mathematics is incorporated within the language of reality's syntax and is therefore divine in nature. There is something about the mystical perception of a higher, eternal truth of mathematical objects that transcends our ordinary experience. As mathematician Edward Frankel said, there's a secret world out there, a hidden parallel universe of beauty and elegance, intricately entwined with ours. And it's invisible to most of us, even most mathematicians. They're just up there, they have their symbols on a blackboard, and they're not thinking about this deep reality that they are uncovering every time they make a stroke. Martin Gardner, who ran a mathematical games column in Scientific American for a quarter century, said, "It is because I believe in this wholly other realm, a realm in which our universe is an infinitesimal island, that I call myself a mystic in the Platonic sense." So there's this whole world of, according to Gardner, of design and potential that expresses itself in the language of mathematics. And we, in our world, we just have a little portion of that. We're just the part which is actualized. But there's this deeper sense in which mathematics is the language that ultimate reality expresses itself in. He says there's no way you can talk someone into feeling it any more than you can talk someone into falling in love. Something about mathematics' form, grace, and elegance captures an aesthetic reality beyond logic and reason, which, if you truly grasp, it's almost impossible not to love. It's an intuition of a higher realm of light and high beauty that remains forever beyond its reach. Even Gardner a famed logician and skeptic of these kind of woo ideas, recognizes the call to something higher embedded in the language of math. In the CTMU, language itself is considered the most general mathematical structure. So, if reality is a language, so too is reality mathematical. The world of forms that lies beyond our immediate world of impressions and appearances, the ultimate reality, has long been said to consist of mathematical objects, forms, and patterns of mathematical character. For example, Pythagoras in antiquity, one of the most famous mathematicians and philosophers. You probably know him for the Pythagorean theorem, or if you're a philosophy guy, you might know him for his weird aversion to beans. The real ones know. But his religion worshipped numbers and their relations as divine, giving the study of mathematics a transcendent character. And this theme was taken up by Plato and Parmenides, whose idea of forms were these mathematical objects that somehow generated our impressions of the universe. Therefore, in the Republic, Plato says that the knowledge at which geometry aims is the knowledge of the eternal, because these shapes aren't dependent on any particular shape that exists in the world. They are timeless patterns that informs how reality itself is shaped. Mathematics is not about the fleeting realities of how many watermelons you can buy from a store for $6, or how many containers you need to fit 87 hot dog buns. If each container has 12, how many are left over? What's the remainder? It's like, no, that's not what it's about. That's fake. I mean, obviously, that is a use of mathematics, but ultimately, mathematics is about the intuition of an ultimate reality beyond the veil of illusion pulled over our eyes. And the way that mathematics is taught, this is one of my firmest convictions, is an ethical crime. It is wrong and it is disgusting that this marvelous and subtle art has been reduced to multiplication tables and formulas to memorize. Sure, those could be important down the line, but they have the order wrong. No effort is needed to get students to love math. They only teach them how to do it. And if you don't teach them what it's about, it's like they don't get it. Ed Frankel compares math, the way it's currently taught, to an art class in which students are only taught how to paint fences and walls, and they spend their entire class period watching paint dry. They're just looking at the simplest procedure, and they're never showed the paintings of the great masters. Of course, they'd be bored. Of course, it's everyone's least favorite subject. But mathematics itself is a bigger and more fascinating subject than we've been led to believe. Mathematics itself is outside of space and time, existing not independently, but interdependently with our minds. So, mathematics is a coupling of human nature and reality, and it's this subtle blend between the two that allows us to actually make contact with this ultimate world. Our minds can penetrate into non-terminal meta-reality N, which is the trustworthy source of structure and dynamics of mathematical forms. Therefore, mathematics can almost be thought of as a spiritual exercise, similar to direct religious experience. Your mind is instantly inspired by a flash of insight from outside the murky walls of this cave, and you see the forms that generate and give rise to your everyday existence. Remember, mathematics is part of the language of reality, and this makes the ultimate reality mathematical. As Kurt Gödel, probably the third greatest logician of all time. I mean, he's no Gödel or Frege, obviously. He's no Aristotle, but he's definitely up there. He said, mathematical concepts form an objective reality of their own, which we cannot create or change, but only perceive and describe. So it's not like we invented mathematics. It somehow exists independently of us. But simply by the way we teach mathematics as like these arbitrary constructions, it's just you have to memorize this, you have to create this mathematical thing. It's about discovery. It's about unveiling these forms and showing this vast world of elegance and beauty that is within direct reach of us by our own notation. So here I'll share some of the most critical findings from my peer Bernard. He has a channel called Self-Duality on YouTube, which I'll link in the description. He made a video called Why I Am Not an Academic Mathematician. He goes very brilliantly into some of the problems with academic mathematics. But in it, he also discusses his own philosophy of how number works, and I found that to be very inspiring. And the basic idea is like everything is connected by one identity, right? It is one. Anything that you can perceive and describe, you can make into an ever larger group, and you can say all of reality, I'm describing that as one thing, as one unit. And so that if everything is one, then separation within that becomes a new kind of relationship. The two separate objects are related by their distinction. It's a more profound unity in which things are the same because of their difference. This mathematical relationship is called syndifionesis in the CTMU. Whenever you distinguish between related objects, one relationship extends over both relans. So again, syndifionesis, sameness in difference. The relationship makes the different things the same. It connects them. And so by virtue of their embedment within a relationship that is more general than themselves, the two related objects are made one, sameness and difference. So all of mathematics is the self-relationship and self-differentiation of the number one, is that there's one identity, which we can call math itself, and then math times one, the identity of math, is then further unfolding and multiplexing itself, but the sameness precedes the difference. All of this is one thing. And every number itself has an identity, one. And what do I mean by that? Like 4 doesn't equal 1. Well, in a way it does, because 4 is one number, which is 4. But the identity of 4 is one identity. The square root of 2 is one number. It's like 1.414 or something, but it's one number. 1.3 squared is not 2, but the square root of 2 when multiplied by itself is 2. It's one number. Bernard says that 1 is the most important number. It's not just a multiplicative identity. It's not just 2 times 1 equals 1 or 4 times 1 equals 1, but it is the unit of mathematization. Everything in mathematics has to express itself through the identity relationship. So when we refer to a unit of a substance, that is that substance with respect to the number 1. So a unit of a dozen is 12 times 1. It's 12, therefore 1 is called the identity multiplicative relationship because whenever you multiply any number by 1, its identity is preserved, meaning its value stays the same. 12 times 1 equals 12. 10 trillion times 1 equals 10 trillion. 4 times 1 equals 4, and so on. This is the first principle of mathematics, the principle of identity. Identity is a mathematical structure that preserves the value of an object, property, or relation. So do we teach our kids addition, multiplication, division, subtraction? Why do we do that before we teach them about identity or what a number is? Most teachers, even at the college level, can't give you a meaningful formulation of their own actions when they're scribbling on a chalkboard of what they're doing when they do math, because they don't wrestle with these foundational questions in the philosophy of math. So math needs to be embedded within philosophy. Mathematics is the handmaiden of philosophy. Any philosophical statements and questions must be given mathematical structure, or else they're foolish and sloppy and imprecise, like you see with a lot of philosophy. But when you join the two together, it's a deadly combination. So what is a number anyways? Is it the number, the tick on the page? That can't be it. It's just a tick. It's just a symbol. For symbol 1 to be identified as the identity relation 1, it must be processed through the mathematician's mind. 1, the same holds for any mathematical relation. If it is not filtered through the human cognitive perceptual structure of the mathematician's mind, it cannot be conceived or perceived. So mathematics needs human nature in order to express itself. It needs the theorist. It needs the mathematician, even though it has this independent character structurally. In order for its actual content and its actual notation, you need a mathematician. To illustrate this simply, I could give you a page of mathematics written in Sanskrit script, and you would not be able to make any meaning out of it. Surely it does have meaning in some way. Someone who lives in India might be able to read it. But if I'm just writing it in Sanskrit letters, and I'm not using the usual Arabic numerals, you're not going to be able to make any meaning of it, even if it's like a straightforward arithmetical expression like 2 plus 2 equals 4. Doesn't matter. You need the mathematician. It needs to be processed in a human mind and formulated by a human mind. A number is timeless. It does not exist in time. Everything else will disappear one day, but the equation 2 plus 2 equals 4 will always group two groups of 2 into 4 objects. If the universe is destroyed, the addition operation still exists. But, big but, the notation for it does not. So this reflects a sort of qualified mathematical Platonism. The eternal world is mathematical. Everything in the universe is one by its containment in the universe. There is one universe and therefore an identity coupled with the universe while preserving its attributes. 1 times universe equals the identity of the universe. The English word universe actually comes from the Latin universis, which means to make one, to be combined to make one, to be whole, i.e., that which is combined, all of its content, to be made whole. So it becomes one by virtue of its combination. So, thus, through its identity, the universe can meaningfully accommodate all of its internal distinctions through a process called syndifionesis, sameness in difference. Bernard says the universe is the most complex instantiation of the number one. The physical world is the dynamical projection from within that one identity of a supersensible mathematical world with an n-ray identity, meaning that the identity can be transformed and changed an arbitrary number of times without disrupting its ultimate structure. So therefore, as Langen, again the author of the cognitive theoretic model of the universe, said, mathematics is incorporated within the deep structure of the language of the universe. Any valid metaphysical theory must have mathematics as its structure and mathematics as its contents. So it's all has to be mathematical. Any attempt at explaining this ultimate reality also requires an explanation of philosophy. Bernard says that the game the mathematicians it's all in a static structure. It's all just stuck in place. We got fixed symbols that don't equate to the timeless objects that I was interested in. So are the numbers the forms? Not quite. It's like somehow it's a coupling of number and the way that those numbers are expressed in the universe that is like the ultimate reality. But mathematics is not being framed as an entry into the metaphysical world. Instead, it's about finding static connections between static objects and then being shocked when they correspond to any factual content in the universe. It's like, see, for example, the common phrase, the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics in the natural science. Like, I'm sorry, it's bullshit. It's like, how can you say it's unreasonably effective when the notation is formulated in order such that science can be expressed through it? Science is a mathematical language. Of course, it's effective. Mathematics is the second most general discipline because language, mathematics, metaphysics, reality theory, everything has this same structure, which is expressed in the language of math. So this is why what I call mathematical metaphysics is the most general human cognitive discipline. Formerly, one of the critical courses of study within the human cognitive discipline is the philosophy of mathematics, because it's mathematical metaphysics turned back in on itself to study mathematics in its own referent context. Is what does this actually mean? If we have a truthful idea of reality theory, then we can start to figure that out. So as Charles Sanders Peirce, one of my favorite logicians, said, again, he's no Frege, he's no Aristotle, he's no Boole, he's no Gödel, but he's up there. He's no Russell, but he's like top 10 for sure. One of my favorite logicians, he said, mathematics is the science of making necessary conclusions. No one knows all of math. The celebrated genius and polymath mathematician John von Neumann, probably one of the top 15, who also created the consciousness-created reality interpretation of quantum mechanics, estimated that a skilled mathematician probably only knows about 10% of what's available to learn. And that was decades ago. That was, I think, probably almost a century ago. It's gotten a lot lower since then. Mathematics builds on itself, but its body of knowledge is not forever growing. As some textures are built up, others are broken down. Theories and interests either grow neglected and unpopular or get disproven, and new formulations arise that either take the best in the previous theories or discard them entirely. Russian mathematician I.R. Sharefovich, one of the world's leading researchers in algebraic geometry, said, quote, mathematics may now serve as a model for the solution of the main problem of our epoch, the quest to reveal as the supreme religious goal and to fathom the meaning of the spiritual activity of mankind. Therefore, the study of mathematics requires mathematical metaphysics, the study of the spiritual activity of humanity, and the process of theorization itself. Through its self-model, we will use mathematical structure to study and unify science, philosophy, and religion to fathom the meaning of the spiritual activity and achieve the religious goal of planetary wisdom. When the knowledge, note the attribution, which is mathematical, the knowledge of God will be over the face of the earth as the waters fill the sea. On that day in which we'll properly recognize what God is mathematically and what our role in establishing a human planetary civilization through the mathematical structure of metaphysics, God will be one and his name one, meaning that we will call him, what we call him will be truthfully bound to his actual character. To reiterate, all mathematics is incorporated in the language of reality and is therefore divine in nature. Thus, mathematics can truthfully be formulated as a form of theology. In the next module, we'll give a fast-paced and engaging survey of existing mathematical disciplines such as analytic geometry, Euclidean geometry, mathematical modeling, and basic ideas of calculus, as well as their essential explanatory deficiencies and how CTMU metamathematics solves this. So thank you so much. Take care. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Let the light shine forth in the darkness. May the peace of our Father in heaven be upon you. Like and subscribe. Peace.